Barbara Jordan was an American leader of the civil rights movement and a politician for over 30 years throughout the 1960s and 1990s. She was born February 21st, 1936 in Houston, Texas, from a segregated, low-income community called Fifth Ward, Texas. Barbara was the youngest child of three girls. Her parents are Benjamin and Arlene Jordan. Benjamin was a Baptist minister. Her mom was a domestic worker. Her parents were the inspiration that pushed her to strive for academic success and honor to God in her community. Barbara Jordan attended and graduated with honors in 1952 from Phyllis Wheatley High School, where her gift for language and debate was recognized. One career day at her high school, young Barbara met an African-American female lawyer from Chicago named Edith Sampson, who later became a judge. Jordan was impressed by her that she quickly made the decision to become a lawyer herself. Barbara and her family chose Texas Southern University to major in political science and history. Barbara decided she would join TSU's debate team under the leadership of Dr. Thomas Freeman to later help pay for law school, and just as she had planned, she became a national champion debater, graduating magna cum laude in 1956. In 1959, a determined Barbara graduated from Boston Law School. After graduating from law school, she returned to her community to practice in Texas and worked from her parents' home until later opening a law practice on Lawns Avenue in Fifth Ward, Texas. In 1962, Barbara became active in politics, campaigning for John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson. However, it took 2 years of campaigning before she won a seat on the Texas legislature. When Barbara decided to accomplish something, she put all her eggs in the basket and sold it. She would not take no for an answer. The proof was seen when she campaigned twice in 1962 and 1964 and lost for a seat in the House of Representatives. Though she lost the elections, Barbara's politics had gained popularity when the voting districts were realigned. She realized those who supported and voted for her in the past campaigns were now represented in one district, so she decided to run for the Texas Senate in 1966. And guess what? She won. Now Barbara was the first African American woman to ever be elected to the Texas Senate and the first African American person to serve since the Reconstruction period. While having a seat in the Texas legislature in 1969, Jordan helped establish the Texas Fair Employment Practices Commission and established the minimum wage law of $1.25 an hour. Jordan decided to run for the U.S. House of Representatives again. She was not the first African American woman to be seated in the U.S. Congress. That honor went to Shirley Chisholm of New York, who had been elected in 1968. She was, however, the first African American woman from the South. In 1972, after 6 years of being in the Texas State Senate, she decided to run for the U.S. House of Representatives. She was the second African American woman to get elected, incredibly being the second African American woman to serve in Congress and the first woman from the Deep South. In 1972, her constituents voted her president pro tempore of the state Senate. Barbara wanted to be a member of the House Judiciary Committee that happened with the help from President Lyndon B. Johnson. As a freshman member to the House, she was described as the moral compass, calling for the impeachment of President Nixon. The Watergate scandal was the catalyst that helped advance her political career to winning the election to the U.S. House of Representatives.
James Madison again at the Constitutional Convention. A president is impeachable if he attempts to subvert the Constitution. The Constitution charges the president with the task of taking care that the laws be faithfully executed. And yet, the president has counseled his aides to commit perjury, willfully disregard the secrecy of grand jury proceedings, conceal surreptitious entry, attempt to compromise a federal judge, while publicly displaying its cooperation with the processes of criminal justice. A president is impeachable if he attempts to subvert the Constitution. If the impeachment provision in the Constitution of the United States will not reach the offenses charged here, then perhaps that 18th century Constitution should be abandoned to a 20th century paper shredder. Has the president committed offenses? and planned and directed and acquiesced in a course of conduct which the Constitution will not tolerate? That's the question. We know that. We know the question. We should now forthwith proceed to answer the question. It is reason and not passion which must guide our deliberations, guide our debate, and guide our decision. I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Chair.
With the 1974 Watergate scandal and the impeachment of President Nixon, Barbara swept the nation with her gift of dialogue and rhetoric. No one could refuse the promise to keep a moral compass when guiding their decisions on what was right for we the people. In 1974, Barbara gave a riveting and emotional-driven speech. But when the document was completed on the 17th of September in 1787, I was not included in that we the people. I felt somehow for many years that George Washington and Alexander Hamilton must have left me out by mistake. But though the process of amendment, interpretation, and court decision, I have finally been included in the we the people. Now, my faith of the Constitution is whole, it is complete, it is total. I am not going to sit here and be an idle spectator of the diminution, the subversion, and the deconstruction of the Constitution. If Barbara had not already won over her critics and allowed America to open their minds to accepting the American dream for all people, then this was indeed her mark in the journey of the Hall of Fame, and thus the defining moment that makes her a leader and legacy for all Americans, whom of which protected by the Constitution. In 1976, Barbara was the first African American to deliver the keynote address.
Ladies and gentlemen, for a very warm reception. It was 144 years ago that members of the Democratic Party first met in convention to select a presidential candidate. Since that time, Democrats have continued to convene once every 4 years and draft a party platform and nominate a presidential candidate. And our meeting this week is a continuation of that tradition. But there is something different about tonight. There is something special about tonight. What is different? What is special? I, Barbara Jordan, am a keynote speaker.
Barbara sadly died from leukemia and multiple sclerosis, which caused her to rely on a wheelchair or a walker in her later years. Barbara Jordan's accomplishments and legacy led her to many awards and even landmarks. There are many schools, parks, community centers, and statues throughout Texas for us to remember to continue the fight for a country and government that includes we the people in the American Constitution. If you are still wondering what makes Barbara Jordan an American hero, I think in the words of Barbara herself best describes how she paved the way for all people who originated from a place of separateness and disadvantages both economically and socially, where in the beginning it was not the norm to fight for the rights of those who were not considered by a government to be worthy of the rights of the majority. Her eloquence in dialogue and moral and mental strength makes America proud to call her one of the American heroes that went against the grain of what was normal, creating a new normal for the betterment of the people. You don't have to do big, gigantic things. Just do them incrementally. Barbara Jordan, 1936-1996. What people want is very simple. They want an America as good as its promise. Barbara Jordan.
You can beat the war, you can talk the guy, go banging on his door. You can throw your hands up, you can beat the clock. You can move a mountain, you can break rocks. You can be a master, don't wait for luck. Dedicate yourself and you gon' find yourself.